This is WAB's Week in Review. I'm Alex Helmick, managing editor of WAB News, and on this show we look back at the last few days of stories from your WAB News team. Just ahead, nearly a decade ago, a Georgia religious liberty bill sparked national outcry. Opponents said it could result in discrimination against LGBTQ people. Amid the backlash, then Republican Governor Nathan Deal vetoed it.
I believe it is about the character of our state and the character of our people. Georgia is a welcoming state.
This year, Governor Brian Kemp promptly signed a similar Religious Freedom Restoration Act into law. Coming up as part of WAB's Beyond Pride series, we look at what's changed. First, though, a Georgia woman declared brain dead but kept on life support because she was pregnant was removed from the ventilator this week, days after her baby was delivered by emergency C-section. WAB's Jess Mador reported on the high-profile case.
Adriana Smith had been on life support with multiple blood clots in her brain at Emory University Hospital since February. Her mother told Atlanta's WXIA-TV she was about 8 weeks pregnant when her brain stopped functioning. The hospital isn't commenting, but said previously it complies with all applicable laws, including Georgia's abortion law. That bans abortion after around 6 weeks of pregnancy and gives embryos and fetuses the same legal rights as a person. The 1-pound, 13-ounce baby is in the NICU, according to the family. They took Smith off life support Tuesday. Jess Mador, WABE News.
A local journalist is awaiting a bond hearing from the Folkston ICE Processing Center in southeast Georgia after he was arrested while live streaming police conduct at a recent protest. WAB's Shemaine Cruz told us about it.
Mario Guevara's case has drawn widespread attention because he's currently believed to be the only journalist facing deportation under the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Guevara's attorneys have asked the DeKalb County Solicitor General's office to drop the 3 misdemeanor charges brought against him during last weekend's protest, saying video footage contradicts the police account of his arrest. The office has not said whether it's considering the request. Meantime, the National Association of Hispanic Journalists says his transfer to federal immigration authorities while he awaits trial raises serious due process concerns. Several other journalism organizations are signing on to a letter to U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calling for his release. Shemaine Cruz, WABE News.
Well, the assassination this month of a Minnesota state lawmaker at her home rattled many state lawmakers here in Georgia. The recent killing comes as public officials have already been facing an uptick in threats and harassment. WAB's Sam Greenglass reported the story.
Democratic State Senator Kim Jackson says many lawmakers are on edge.
People are scared. This hit differently. I think I've seen colleagues go out and get trained on how to use arms at gun ranges in the last couple of days.
On Saturday, Jackson says the Georgia Bureau of Investigation reached out to offer advice on requesting security from local law enforcement. Lawmakers were also reminded that they're able to use campaign funds for personal security. But for many lawmakers, it's becoming increasingly challenging to balance accessibility and safety. That tense environment has made some think about how much security they're willing to sacrifice to serve in public office.
But now we have 2 small kids, and so the calculation is different. And I would be lying if I didn't say I had a moment of thinking, like, is this worth it?
Jackson is among the Georgia officials who have been swatted. That's when a hoax 911 call is made to prompt a massive police response. An onslaught of incidents led to lawmakers passing a bill to redact lawmakers' home addresses from campaign finance records. Republican Kay Kirkpatrick has also been swatted. She said she didn't initially think much about safety as a local official. She used to put her cell phone on campaign literature. But her perspective began to change a few years ago when someone had a pizza delivered to her home.
That was somebody sending a message that they knew where I lived.
So is it possible to ratchet down the temperature?
I wish I knew the answer to that. It's really one person at a time. That's one of the reasons that I try pretty hard to keep marching down the path of getting work done and not go out of my way to make things worse. I'm hopeful that most of my colleagues are trying to do the same thing.
Sam Greenglass, WAB News.
Atlanta home builders say they are continually facing increased labor costs and permitting challenges, and now the cost of building materials could add to what's been a complex year. WABE's Marlon Hyde reported the story.
Lumber from Canada currently faces a 14.5% import tax. It was raised to that during the Biden administration. The National Home Builders Association expects Trump will raise it again later this year. Still, Garrett Wiley with the Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association says it could have been worse because Canadian lumber is exempt from the president's even higher global reciprocal tariffs.
The majority of our lumber for home building comes from Canada. So we would consider that a huge win.
The home builders expect tariffs on other materials to raise costs, which are already up 34% since the end of 2020. Wiley says that can really drive up the cost of a home.
How many people are really going to be lining up to spend 1.5 million plus, 2 million plus, 3 million plus on a home when there's economic uncertainty?
The Home Builders Association says amid this uncertainty, its members are being cautiously optimistic for now, as some builders look towards next year for a possible upturn in the housing market. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
Officials in Jonesboro say they're reclaiming the town's history by renaming a street that once divided black and white communities during the Jim Crow era. As WABE's Dormaya Vance reported, the renaming came in time for the Juneteenth holiday.
It's a partly cloudy afternoon as folks gathered at the intersection of what used to be White Line and Irvin Street in Jonesboro.
Back in the day, it was just one street. They call it White Line.
Catherine Starr is a 93-year-old member of the Starr family. The new street name, Starr Drive, honors her family's deep ties to the Jonesboro community.
Oh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here to see it.
White Line was once a marker that segregated the city's black population into the Adamson's White Line colored subdivision, named after a white land developer. Starr's own memory of White Line is fuzzy, but Jonesboro residents like Rosemary Green, who learned about the street's history, advocated for the name change.
We came across a little bit of information where it actually said in Plat Book number 2, page number 1, Adamson's White Line colored subdivision. And so I immediately, got a little rattled.
Jonesboro's city council voted last year to change the name. Mayor Danya Sauter said the decision was unanimous because it was something residents wanted.
I was just able to facilitate what the citizens desire, and that's what a true elected official is. You take what the citizens want, you articulate it to your council. If you're lucky like this situation, you get a unanimous vote, and then everybody comes out and shares in the celebration.
The Starr family and elected officials unveiled Starr Drive this week. Catherine Starr was presented with her own personal Starr Drive street sign as a memento. Dormaya Vance, WABE News.
Georgia community advocates and lawmakers are calling for federal action on behalf of the more than 500,000 DACA recipients in America. WABE's Raul Bali reported on the 13th anniversary of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program.
DACA offers temporary protection from deportation and work authorization for some people without legal status who were brought to the United States as children. Republican State Representative Casey Carpenter of Dalton represents a large Hispanic population. He became emotional talking about DACA.
I remember a world where DACA didn't exist, where thousands of school children had no hope and no future. They were as Georgia as the Atlanta Braves, but they had no path. With DACA, I saw lives changed.
Jaime Runkel is with the immigration advocacy organization Forward.us. He's one of Georgia's nearly 18,000 DACA recipients, and his organization estimates 15,000 are working in Georgia.
They are filling critical job openings, paying taxes, and otherwise contributing to our state's success. Unfortunately, the program has faced more than its fair share of legal attacks over the years, and is still in legal limbo today. DACA is under active litigation, and DACA renewals could be stopped as soon as this year.
For now, there doesn't seem to be any action in Congress or the White House that would create a path to citizenship for those with DACA. Raul Valley, WABE News, the state capital.
Well, after years without updates, the city of Atlanta has unanimously passed a new tree protection ordinance. WABE's Marissa Mecki explained.
The ordinance includes measures like increased funding to help low-income seniors remove dead or fallen trees, increased fees, also known as recompense, for tree removals and lower recompense for affordable housing. Several council members noted these are big steps that have been needed for a long time, but they don't want to let perfection be the enemy of good. Here's Councilmember Antonio Lewis.
What I've learned as a council person and being here is that you can't kill it because you didn't get everything you wanted, because it can't just be my idea.
Developers say they feel the update is fair. This is Garrett Wiley, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Greater Atlanta Home Builders.
I wouldn't chalk it up as a win for the development community, and I wouldn't chalk it up as a loss for the development community.
But tree advocates say there's still a lot of work to be done to protect trees and stem the loss of Atlanta's natural canopy. Here's Greg Levine, Executive Director of Trees Atlanta.
This is just not doing enough. It was a step in the right direction, but it's not. And of course, the preservation needs to be addressed.
He says even though the increased recompense helps, there's still many discounts and opportunities to pay less, meaning fewer new trees will be planted. Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari agrees. She says she isn't considering this vote the end of her work on the tree ordinance.
I'm dealing with clear cutting in my community. I need some way to push back on it. This is a start, but to my colleagues and to everyone listening, I'm not done.
The ordinance is now headed for the mayor's desk for approval. Marissa Mackey, WABE News.
You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. Well, former Georgia Republican Governor Nathan Deal drew national attention in 2016 when he vetoed a religious liberty bill that opponents argued would result in discrimination against LGBTQ people. But over the next decade, supporters didn't give up. And when a similar measure passed again this spring, Governor Brian Kemp promptly signed it into law. For WABE's Beyond Pride series, politics reporter Sam Greenglass looks at what changed.
Jeff Graham's office is covered in mementos from 17 years leading Georgia equality.
You can see that's there on the wall. It was a full-page ad. 272 Georgia clergy opposed discrimination in the name of religion.
Graham's pointing to a 2016 Atlanta Journal-Constitution page. A bill known as the Free Exercise Protection Act had landed on the governor's desk, and Georgia Equality, the state's leading LGBTQ advocacy group, was in an all-out fight to stop it, including hand-delivering to the governor's office 75,000 emails urging a veto.
Close to 30 boxes filled with these emails.
Supporters of the legislation, often known as Religious Freedom Restoration Acts or RFRAs, say they ensure the government meets a high bar before limiting religious beliefs or practices. Critics say these laws open the door to allowing discrimination against LGBTQ people. While a federal RFRA passed with bipartisan support in the early 90s, by the 2010s, proposals to enact state-level RFRAs were spurring outcry in places like Indiana and then Georgia.
Showdown over a proposed religious liberty bill could be costly for the state of Georgia.
And Hollywood heavyweights, which generate more than $6 billion in Georgia, threatened to boycott.
A year prior, the U.S. Supreme Court had legalized same-sex marriage, and corporate America was embracing efforts to expand LGBTQ rights.
Disney issued a statement saying, "We will plan to take our business elsewhere." Similar sentiments have been voiced by Delta, Coca-Cola, the Falcons, and the Braves.
The target of that pressure, Republican Governor Nathan Deal.
I think he weighed this very heavily, and I think he weighed this until the bitter end.
Longtime staffer Brian Robinson says Deal's ultimate decision was practical, not ideological. The governor wrote his own remarks to announce the veto, and he wrote them by hand.
And that just goes to show you how personal it was.
Georgia is a welcoming state.
And if you look back at it, it is a defense of religious freedom. And that religious freedom can coexist with tolerance.
I do not think that we have to discriminate against anyone to protect the faith-based community in Georgia, of which I and my family have been a part of for all of our lives.
It really was a beautifully written speech, but I do think it's one that he agonized over.
That was nearly a decade ago. When a similar measure passed this spring, Democrats and LGBTQ allies again opposed it. But this time, corporations did not threaten boycotts. The governor did not agonize. Republican State Senator Ed Setzler had been trying to pass RFRA for years.
It was just relief that the nonsense that's confused the public about what the Religious Freedom Restoration Act simply does was finally over.
Setzler says pandemic restrictions on large gatherings helped reframe the debate.
Folks saw those kinds of extreme actions by government shut down people's basic practice of faith, folks said, wait a minute, we've got to put protections in place.
Georgia Equality's Jeff Graham sees another explanation.
I think that the simple answer is the entire country has shifted very far to the right. RFRA is not any better now than it was in 2016.
Graham points to the climate surrounding the 2024 election of President Donald Trump, who has railed against diversity, equity, and inclusion. Groups like Georgia Equality have had to triage, turning their resources to opposing new measures targeting transgender people.
There is a greater urgency to fight pieces of legislation that cause immediate and irreversible harm.
Brian Robinson says corporations are also prioritizing other fights in this political environment, like tariffs. And amid backlash, many companies are retreating from debates over race, gender, and sexuality. While the Georgia Chamber of Commerce opposed RFRA again this year, there was no full court press.
I talked to people in the business community, and they said, we're against it, we don't need it, but we are not going to go die on this hill right now.
Robinson says he thinks if Deal was governor today, he would not veto RFRA. He believes the former governor would sign it. Sam Greenglass, WABE News.
That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for another round of great stories. You can get more at WABE.org. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE and for listening to The Week in Review.